This is going to be yet another response to Black Atheist 1. So this time around, I'm actually going to play clips from your video and then respond to them right there.
And my question is, why didn't you acknowledge that I said that you were undermining intellectual submission in your video? You left the word undermining out, which is a form of straw man.
Actually, no. It would only be a straw man if I left something out that changed the meaning of what you were trying to say. Now, you say that me saying that a man submitting to a woman undermines intellectual submission. You mentioned how I talked about physical submission and egotistical submission, and that's where I mentioned that most men's ego is not going to allow for them to submit to a woman. But since there's another type of submission called intellectual submission, in which a less intelligent person submits to a more intelligent person, which is a legitimate reason to submit, then why do I call a man a bitch if he submits? If that's your question, here's the answer. First of all, even though there are different types of submission, the result is still the same. That result is, metaphorically speaking, someone's going to be in the driver's seat and someone's going to be in the passenger seat. So regardless of whether a man is submitting to a woman because she is physically stronger than him, because she is providing for him, or because she is smarter than him, he is still submitting. That means he's going to be following the woman's lead. Now, that's okay if both parties in the relationship, the man and the woman, are okay with the man following the woman. But most men are not okay with following a woman. Now, intellectual submission is a little bit different from the other two submissions that we talked about because it can switch up more. There are some things that a woman may know more about, so the man will let her handle it, and there are some things that the man knows more about, so she'll let him handle that. That's not what I'm talking about by submission. I mean submission as in who's following whose plan in life. For example, if the man says, I make enough money to support us, I want you to quit your job and stay home, and I want you to raise my children. If the woman honors his wishes, that's the type of submission I'm talking about. She's submitting to his life plan. I'm talking about when there's a decision to be made, the man and the woman will discuss it with each other for a while, but then there will come a point in the discussion where the man will say, okay, we've talked about it, now here's what we're going to do. And whatever the man says, the woman will submit to, even if it's not exactly what she wanted. Now, hopefully, if you choose a husband carefully, you'll find someone who has the same goals in life as you, so that he'll rarely make a decision that's totally not what you wanted. I'm not talking about if a man says, well, my wife knows more about computers, so I'm going to let her choose the computer that we buy. That's just good common sense, but let me tell you where submission would come into that scenario. If the man has made up his mind that he wants to buy a certain computer, and his wife, who is an expert in computers, says, you know what, honey, that's a nice computer, but I think this computer would better suit our needs. Now, the man may listen to what she has to say and take it into account, but he still may decide, no, you know what, I want this computer and this is the one we're going to get. Submission comes into play when both people have an opinion on a certain thing. Who is ultimately going to fold to whom? So if the man has decided he wants a certain computer, even if his wife, who knows more about computers, wants a different computer, she is going to submit to what he wants because he is the leader. That's what submission is. When two people's plans or ideas don't coincide, who folds to whom? Now, take that same scenario with the guy buying the computer. If his wife does come to him and say, you know what, honey, that's a nice computer, but I think this one will be better, and he does actually take her advice, I wouldn't call that guy a bitch just because of that. When I say bitch man, I'm talking about a man who follows a woman's life plan. I'm talking about a man who is always or most of the time deferring to the woman. Now, that's okay if both people in the relationship are okay with that. But the point I was trying to make in that video, which was aimed at women, not men, is if you're saying you want a man that's going to lead and provide and do this and own this, generally, men like that don't submit. If you insist on controlling everything, you're probably going to attract a bitch man. And most women don't want a bitch man because people don't take bitch men seriously. Stedman is a joke. Now, the quote-unquote problem with submissive men isn't really the submission, it's the personality that tends to come with it. Think in your own personal life of a couple that you know in which the woman wears the pants in the relationship and look at how the man acts. Many of them give you the impression that they don't have mouths, or they don't have spines, or they don't have balls. And they almost have like kind of a timid personality. They'll either be like that, or they'll be men who we consider to be freeloaders or lazy who don't want to work, so they don't mind submitting to a woman as long as she takes care of them. Or he'll be a quote-unquote boy toy and be a lot younger than the woman. Generally, the only type of woman that likes those type of men is really domineering women who like complete control over their lives and don't want to have to answer to anybody, but they still want to have male company. So she'll look for a man that's not going to challenge her authority, so she needs a man that's either younger than her, a man who doesn't have any money and wants to be supported, or a man who has a naturally submissive personality. So I'm not just talking about a man that says, "Hey honey, what's your opinion on this?" or lets her handle things that she's an expert in. I'm talking about an actual submissive man, and there's a specific personality that goes along with that. And generally, the only type of women who find that personality attractive is domineering women. So the point I was trying to make is that if a woman is looking for a leader, a man who submits is probably not going to be satisfactory for her.
My next question, why didn't you acknowledge that I said in a subliminal way in reference to speaking to it's like a man being a bitch when he intellectually submits?
Well, first of all, I don't agree that it was subliminal. I came right out and said how I feel about men who submit to women. Secondly, like I said before, that's my opinion, but my opinion is based on certain facts.
In your reply, you said, and I quote, "I believe women should seek out men who are smarter than them."
Okay, if you're gonna say that, then you'll have to remember that I said that in a video about submission. That video was aimed at women who have a problem with submitting to a man just because he's a man. That's why I said a real reason for women to submit, no bullshit. Submitting to a man just because he's a man is bullshit. But submitting to a person who is supporting you is not bullshit. It makes sense. And since most men want to be the leader in the relationship, I think it would be better if a woman finds a man who is smarter than her, because it really doesn't make sense to submit to someone who is noticeably less intelligent than you.
And when you do hold the belief that women should seek out smarter men, you are undermining the chance of finding somebody compatible. Again, you left the word undermining out on that notion when you started speaking about compatibility.
And by the way, and this is just for your own information, there's no D in the word undermining. But anyway, what you just said could apply to any standard that you set. For example, if you say I'm not into fat chicks, there may be a fat chick out there who may be great with you, but if you're not interested in fat chicks, it doesn't matter. Now, when I said that I think women should seek a man that's smarter than them, you'll have to remember that when I said that, we were on the subject of submission. It's on that same subject that I also said a woman should seek out a man that makes more money than her. And also, as I said before, I meant that video to address women who have a hard time submitting to men. If the woman makes more money than the man, then that can pull him out of the leadership position. I mean, really, why should you submit to somebody who makes less money than you, male or female? It's the same thing with intelligence. However, if two people are in a relationship where the man does not care about being the leader, or he actually likes the woman to lead, then what I'm saying doesn't apply. And in no way am I saying that a relationship can't work if the woman makes more money than the man. Some women are content to submit to a man simply because he's a man. For women who think that's bullshit, they might be better off seeking a man who outperforms them. That will make it easier to submit. Or at least it should. You made it more clear in your second video that the problem that you had with what I said is that I said women instead of just myself. That is duly noted, but when we're talking about the subject of submission and women who may have problems doing it, I stand by what I said.
When you were talking about compatibility, you said that it was based on preference. It is not based on preference. Now, selecting a mate is based on preference, but compatibility isn't. Compatibility is based on similarities and like-mindedness.
That point right there is not a point that I really care to argue because it's kind of like a semantic issue. A woman may have the preference that if she's going to have children, she wants to stay home with them. If she finds a man that has that same preference for a woman to stay home with the kids, then that is a similar interest or something they have in common. And then lastly, what you said about psychologically disenfranchising myself by quote-unquote seeking to be the dumber person in a relationship. Like I said before, if I've noticed that my relationships go better if the man is smarter, then that's going to be something I look for. Oh, one more thing, and this is the last thing. I didn't call you Fire Marshal Bill. I used that term to refer to some of your arguments.